Good morning. My name is Jesse Szemkus.
I'm Sydney Stone.
And I'm Alyssa Wood.
And this is our presentation on the invasive species cleanup in the ABAC and intra-study area. Here are pictures of us in the action. It's a picture of Sydney carrying the backpack sprayer, a picture of Alyssa carrying some brush, and a picture of me carrying some brush.
So our stakeholder for this project was Dr. Vanessa Lane, and she highlighted a few of her goals for this project in both the 10 stakeholder question assignment and by walking with us through the NSA and pointing out certain areas that she would like worked on. So we had a few major goals that guided this project. Number one, namely, was removing those 3 invasive species, Chinese tallow, Chinese privet, and camphor tree. And along with that, we're trying to return the area to a functional, fire-maintained pine savanna, and a major part of that was removing this excessively thick underbrush, especially the privet. And 2 goals that came along with that were, number one, relieving the native species of competition from these invasives, and 2 was an aesthetic improvement of the area for regular use by classes and labs that go down there.
So some benefits of removing invasive species from the NSA would include cover for small mammals or animals in general. The brush piles that we had from the cuts would act as cover for many of these small animals.
Another benefit is killing the mother camphor tree in the back of the NSA. That way it slows seed production, so we can work our way into killing the rest of the camphor that is continuing.
Again, we're trying to improve the aesthetics in this area, and there's been a lot of work that's gone into the boardwalk and other groups that worked in the area, so we wanted to keep that up and make the area look better all around.
And by removing a lot of the invasive species that grew so aggressively throughout the NSA, we would like to have improved access for the dendrology, herbaceous classes, and many of the other classes at the Yale that regularly attend the NSA for the variety of projects and labs. And by removing those, it would help open up areas and make it easier for students to go through the NSA.
So for the equipment, we used a chainsaw to cut down the large stones of privet and tallow, as well as a machete for the smaller diameter privet and Chinese tallow trees. We used a chainsaw to hack into the pecan and camphor tree in order to hack and spray, as well as using the machete as well. We used a backpack sprayer in order to get in the large thickets of privet and tallow to spray, as well as just a smaller spray bottle for the easier accessible stumps. We used a glyphosate spray and a triclopyr spray. And this is an example of the chainsaw and the backpack sprayer that we used during this project.
So we had 2 chemical treatments in this project. The first one we used in the NSA, we used it in the sensitive areas. That was a 30% glyphosate mix. We used that for stump spraying those 3 invasive species, where we'd cut it, we'd spray the stump. That way we could prevent stump sprouting and root suckering in the future. And then when we went to the back of the NSA, we used a 50% triclopyr mix for the hack and square on that large camphor tree. We left that tree. It's going to be a potential snag for future use by wildlife. And we only used that triclopyr mix in that area because there's no sensitive species around it. So the dilution of our chemical was really important. Number one, we had to make sure it was safe for where we were using it. And this is an example of a dilution chart that's found in every label on the herbicide bottle. So this particular chart is from Honcho K6. That's a 41% glyphosate solution. We went with a 48% glyphosate mix, so our numbers were very close on this.
And so a variety of methods were used to achieve our goals. one being the hack and squirt method. And so seen here is a pecan tree that was along the dirt road leading to the NSA. And it was a bit of an eyesore, and it also shaded out some areas where many native herbaceous plants grew along. And so what we had done was we had cut into the tree and sprayed directly into the cuts, and the results occurred very quickly. Within 3 days after the cuts and herbicide were applied, we had began to see here in this picture yellowing of the leaves, showing that the tree was already dying, which was very exciting for all three of us. And seen here were some cuts made into the mother camphor tree. And the same method was used where we had hacked and squirted directly into the cuts into the tree. And the results for now are, I would say, inconclusive, as we have not seen any signs of the tree dying yet. We are suspecting that maybe due to the waxy leaves on the tree, that the reaction isn't going to be immediately seen. So we are hoping within the next couple weeks or so that we will start to see signs of the herbicide taking effect on the tree.
Our second method was a cut and stump spray. For the smaller diameter privet and tallow trees, we cut the stem off as low to the ground as we could to avoid walking hazards for classes. And then we directly sprayed the top of the cut very thoroughly in order to make sure it is very soaked, so we can kill the root system, so it avoids stump sprouting and does not grow back the next growing season.
So we had a few really large privet domes throughout the NSA and into the big woods. There's a pretty heavy concentration in that wet area just outside the boardwalk, and then we had a lot of individuals throughout. So we walked along the trail and we took out smaller individuals along the trail, and then headed into that wet area to start working our way through that large dome. And we used a chainsaw on these big domes that made it a whole lot easier and quicker to take out the big groups of privet. And then on the smaller individuals, we just used a machete. And then we followed both of those with the chemical treatment, the 30% glyphosate mix.
We didn't have as much Chinese tallow as we did privet, however we did run into quite a few. They were mostly in the wet areas with the privet, so we cut and stump sprayed it as low to the ground as we could with the 30% glyphosate solution. And in reiteration, we went back to the mother camphor tree in the back of the NSA to hack and squirt in order to kill it and slow sleep production.
And so for the large brush disposal, what we had done was take the piles of privet and some tallow that were cut down to larger pieces, and we had stacked them up in areas along the sides of the trails. And the goal of this was to create cover for small animals at the NSA. Such animals would include rodents, lagomorphs, and any snakes, or possibly any ground nesting birds that are at the NSA. And with smaller brush, what we had done was cut them up in sections and distributed them off trail, with the goal in mind, similar to the previous slide with the larger brush, to act as cover for small animals. But with these small cuts, what we were thinking was these smaller logs, which is what they had become, would act as cover for primarily herps, such as the salamanders at the NSA, some of the frogs and toads at the NSA, and even for some insects that are at the NSA as well. And for our desired results from this project, we are hoping for reduced competition for the native species at the NSA with the removal of these large woody invasive plants. It would allow openings for the native herbaceous plants that are abundant at the NSA to grow free of any competition, and with also the removal of these large woody invasive species, we're hoping that this would slow the seed production of them as well, to avoid further colonization at the NSA. And all that together, we're all hoping that this will improve the overall aesthetics of the NSA. Clearing all that thick privet will look a lot better, as opposed to the eyesore that, in my opinion, privet and tallow is. And for anyone who comes and visits as well, will be able to see native plants as opposed to the invasives that we see every day on people's lawns or near buildings and such. And I would like to give a big thanks to our stakeholder, Dr. Lane, for giving us the opportunity to work on this project. I think all three of us had a lot of fun, and I would also like to give a thanks to the various groups that were out there doing similar activities, removing the invasive species. It was a big help for us, for them to be out there, and I know that we had assisted them as well, and I would like to give a thanks to those groups. Thank you very much.